Okay, BIP Bizarre Interest Productions. All I gotta do is get started on the video about why complaining about sellouts is becoming even more prominent, and then I can move on to some romance and Boruto discussions. And wait, didn't someone I follow who likes two franchises that I also like made a take I somewhat agree with but mostly disagree with? Well, it's the weekend. I was too busy to reply, so I guess now I'll... Wait, what's going on Twitter? Few build-up, two Blue Vortex chapters got fans dropping some awful takes. Well, oh no, they're cooking my goat on Twitter. Granted, I also have some criticisms with the video, which we will talk about, but I don't know if Wolfgang would consider me a friend, but he's a part of an inspiration why the channel exists. But I don't want other Boruto fans to come in hating on him. Just point out the takes you disagree with in a calm, civil manner, since we're all fans. God, if I ever make that video about why I actually like the Boruto anime and the manga, I'm gonna get flamed. Then again, if I make that video debunking criticisms against Boruto's world building made by someone who only watched up to Shippuden, that one might fare better. Let me know if you guys would like that video in April. We have a lot to cover, and I want to get this done because holy crap, is there too much to talk about. So type Boruto's fangs in the comments because I want to approach the pacing discussion and nuanced take. Wolfgang, you know I respect you, but he's not the only person with these opinions, so let's get started. The first point is that the pacing is too slow, and I don't know if I would agree with that take because Boruto as a manga has had moments where people complain the manga was too fast, especially with Kodachi writing it and too slow with Ikimoto writing it. There are parts of those takes I agree and disagree with, since in part 1, Boruto's movie being made in the 10 chapters took a while. The Mujina Bandits arc, while underappreciated, was low-key boring for some people, and the Owl arc was great, but the story reasonably took some breathers to get Kawaki acclimated into the village to deal with his mental health issues and family drama before Jigen showed up, and things kept going until we got to Ishiki, and I seen people argue Kodachi was too fast and didn't slow things down enough to focus on some of the characters, because until the Boro fight, Sadara and Mitsuki really weren't doing much. I wasn't too mad compared to everyone else because I knew they were going to use the anime to flesh out these events a bit more. Yes, I know the argument you shouldn't need outside sources to flesh out the story, but trying to elevate the source material is never a bad thing. You just need to execute the elevation more consistently, which the Boruto anime has done right and could have done better in some areas. And after the Ishiki arc, things slowed down to set up the new status quo with Code and the cyborgs to the fight leading to Boruto's sacrifice, and that was at least 11 chapters in and where the anime ended. And then when things slowed down again in the 70s chapters, we had Ada and Damon becoming neutral and set up with Ada's friendship with the girls. Sadara and Mitsuki wanted to get stronger, Code limiters and seeking revenge, and Boruto's survival leading to Kawaki turning on him and Naruto. And then we got the craziness with the past 5 chapters. So it feels like Ikimoto and Kishimoto have been trying to find a balance with two Blue Vortex, keep the fights and the pacing more faster, but also slowing down in between some chapters in order to set up the stakes. Kind of funny how both the anime and the manga had this criticism because the anime would like have a few episodes in between big fights, then decided on transition episodes before the next arc kicked in. Okay, let's go by chapter to chapter. Chapters 1 through 4 had Boruto's return, New Gen versus Claw Grimes, Boruto versus Code, then Boruto and Code meet the Shinju and we learn about Sasuke's fate. Then in chapters 5 and 6 we have set up with the other New Gen fighting about Moegi and Boruto explaining Sasuke's fate and the Shinju picking their targets with Amato figuring out omnipotence. Shikamaru starting to realize Boruto might be telling the truth. Chapter 7 has Boruto versus Mitsuki, 8 has Jura and Hidari going after Himawari and Team 10 to find Naruto's chakra, and then chapters 9 through 12 have Inojin almost dead, Kurama awakening inside Himawari, Hidari versus Sadara and Konohamaru, Himawari fighting and losing to Jura, Boruto saving his sister, and Boruto, Sadara, and Konohamaru having to team up against Hidari, but being unable to save Sasuke since Jura takes Hidari's Dawn Soul. 13 through 15 was set up with Kashi and Koji, Shinju revealed, and why he joined Boruto as Boruto's in prison, as well as Gaara being in prison and Shinju joining the villains lineup. Chapter 16 through 24 resulted in the group going to the Sand Village to fight Matsuri and Ryu, Konohamaru versus Matsuri, resulting in Boruto killing her, Ryu killing Yodo and defeating Mitsuki, Arya, and Sadara, with Sadara awakening him on Gekko and defeating Ryu. Jura goes after Boruto and Kawaki takes off his limiters to fight Jura, and then chapters 25 through 28 have the heroes return to the village with Himawari training, Boruto deciding to use Momoshiki's help, Inojin being recruited by Kashi and Koji, and a Daimo's advisor Kobu dealing with the interrogation ready to cut the village's funding. And chapter 29 through 31 has so far had everyone trying to deal with Mushi, who's now rampaging, and everyone has had split focus trying to deal with them, especially with the Kobu eventually realizing how big of a threat Mamushi is. You could make the argument that they should cut the setup chapters, but the problem with that is that if you don't set things up, people complain that things come out of nowhere and that there are plot holes, and as we saw with people who don't like Jujutsu Kaisen, people miss the downtime and bonding between the characters that eventually leads into the next fight, since they were only just setting up future fights for some people. Which, that's not to say you can't have action while also having the characters interact and bonding, but even Naruto had moments in between arcs that either focus on training or just giving the heroes a break. After the Hidan and Kakuzu fight, we literally had a chapter where Konohamaru shows Team 7 a male version of the Harem Jutsu. But it's not like this hasn't happened before in the Naruto franchise. But the biggest factor is some people are kind of upset with the series being monthly, which I do get, but I feel like people keep forgetting why Boruto's monthly. Now, part of that is because Boruto had moved to a monthly manga in V-Jump, which is better than what Black Clover fans have had to deal with since their story had to move to a manga that was only being released like every 4 months or so for a new chapter. And as someone who's interested in checking out Black Clover eventually, God, I feel so bad for what the mangaka had to go through, not even being allowed to have a break when he clearly needed one and had to stay in a hotel to finish a chapter. But we also found out about Kishimoto's schedule was like working on a weekly manga thanks to Organic Dinosaur for an interview that they translated. And holy crap, this is horrible. Like, working on a weekly manga, the man barely only had about like 3 hours of sleep, which is absolutely insane. And if you actually do some digging, Ikimoto has actually explained that Boruto was serialized in a weekly Shonen Jump. So a weekly series is usually about 19 pages to chapter. So monthly will typically be about 4 times that, but Boruto is only 45 to 47 pages, which is only about 60% of that. According to him, it takes about a week for him to make the thumbnails, aka the chapter covers that is colored and illustrated. Then takes him about 20 days to draw the final pages, and then the rest of that time is spent on coloring and other tasks, so we end up needing the whole month. And while he didn't necessarily ask for it to be monthly, he's glad that it is. Again, if he's saying that he needs the whole month to get the chapter done, and we know that he only has like, what, 2 to 3 assistants? God, he needs more. Heard like Oda has at least doubled that. Someone confirm for me if that's true in the comments. Would we really want to sacrifice the mangaka's mental health just to get more content in a faster time? Again, I understand not everyone knows this, but sometimes it feels like both the anime and the manga community just want to treat creators like clowns to dance and make content for them for their amusement at any time, and then get surprised when animation or chapters feel rushed, incomplete, or just didn't have the time that they needed. Wild Fan clearly isn't this, but there have been quite a number of disgruntled and greedy fans of both Naruto and Boruto who don't know the behind the scenes issues and how things works. I personally wouldn't mind a bi-weekly schedule, but that would basically just be cutting up the chapters that we have into 2 parts, and that would just leave more cliffhangers and people complaining that there's not much progression. At least with every chapter so far, since we've had enough time, you can say something major or impactful has happened. Also, Naruto Explained kind of clocked this in his videos, but Boruto is a lot of people's first manga with monthly chapter releases. That being said, I've seen people make unfair criticisms towards Attack on Titan being better in this regard, but let's not pretend there weren't pacing problems with Attack on Titan. Either that people complained about the Uprising arc for focusing on overthrowing the corrupt government between volumes 13 and 16, to the point not only did the Titans not appear for roughly a year in terms of real-life publication in between chapters 51 through 72, and on quote, Isayama has said that he felt the most disappointed with his work and hoped that on his animated adaptation in season 3, he'd have the chance to wipe away that regret and replace with something that he's proud of. And people think that Boruto is the only series where the creator's issues and desire to alter things around in the anime is exclusive and makes it bad, when people had found the Uprising arc boring and claimed that it was drawn out and boring politics, which I don't have a preference, but it says something when the manga fans of AOT, which had to deal with a monthly release, and even the creators had issues with it. Plus, in regards to the chapters feeling slow, I feel like people are ignoring one major detail. The reason why some chapters feel slow is because we're focusing on a lot of characters. Boruto, Kawaki, Sadara, Mitsuki, Himawari, Ada, Inojin, and the rest of Team 10. Shikamaru, Konohamaru, Amado, Sumire, Ishida Shinju, Sai, and that's not to mention the supporting characters in Delta, Damon, Kobu, Ino, Arya, and Yodo. Like, one of the criticisms towards Shippuden in part 1 of Boruto's manga was that some of the characters weren't getting much to do. And while when it came to Shippuden, people were kind of selective on what they meant since there were clearly side characters who were getting development, a la Chiyo, Gaara, Shikamaru, Guy, Jiraiya, the Akatsuki, the Kages. But others, ones people cared about more, in the other half, in Naruto's classmates like Team Guy and 2/3 of Team Kurenai weren't. The thing is, if you want more characters to get more screen time and focus, there has to be dedicated time in the story to do so, which can slow things down for some people. I like One Piece, but let's not pretend people don't criticize One Piece for having long pacing because it spends its time focusing on several characters, both major and minor, as well as the world building. You slow things down at time in order to get the world building, characterization, and side characters to get focused, but if you're going to complain that the story is too slow, then to speed things up, a mangaka would have to drop side characters arc and plots to keep the story moving. Or in Bleach and Naruto's case, cut some smaller character focus arcs to move on to the big events. Like how Kubo had to cut Ashido Kano from the manga, but the anime included him. But people like the Naruto characters and also like the Boruto characters, or would like the Boruto characters if they had more to do and want them to get more to do. Or also in Boruto's case, also have closeted Boruto fans who hate the series yet keep up with it and somehow know every plot detail. And I know some of us don't reread, or in certain Naruto fans' case, they don't read at all. Heck, for this, I'm gonna have to double check a few things for context even for this video. But in terms of if Blue Vortex has any emotional moments, There are some. You got Boruto being unable to call Hinata's mom thanks to omnipotence, and the silent scene of him watching Himawari from afar since he can't even visit her unless a sensory unit would come after him. You have Sasuke sacrifice, people called Konohamaru an idiot, but imagine having to fight the splitting image of one of your best friends you grew up with and found out had feelings for you. That's kind of hard for anyone to do. Choji struggled with this exact same thing in Shippuden against reanimated Asuma. I know we live in the Stranger Things and Game of Thrones era of criticism where people think death is the only form of emotional weight and high stakes, but even minor moments like Boruto refusing to kill Mitsuki, Himawari still having fate in Boruto, Satoru's refusal to hold her back during her Mangekyo reawakening, the flashbacks we see with Boruto and Sasuke, them getting Omoegi back, Ada finalizing her friendship with Sumire and Satoru instead of just resulting in a fight. It's good stuff. Also, I know this is a debate, but do people consider Sakura a main character or an important supporting character? Because I know the arguments for both, but let me know. He did say that Sakura had a big fight, but the question is, if a side character in Two Blue Vortex had a big fight, in Wild Fang, I rock with you, but did you forget Sakura literally reawakened her Mangekyo Sharingan and defeated Ryu after Yodo botched the plan? And even working with Arya, Mitsuki, and Yodo led to all of them getting defeated. She literally avenged all of her teammates' losses and Yodo's death and beat one of the big bads on her own in roughly the same time. And I like Sakura and Chiyo versus Sasori. Don't get me wrong, people downplay that fight to either make look Sasori, Sakura, or Chiyo look bad, but that was a group effort where Chiyo and Sasori hard countered each other, and Sakura was able to stop his poison and stop his main body before Chiyo gave the finishing blow, on top of Sasori wanted to die. But Sakura defeated Ryu on her own with no technicalities to take into play. And we can't even say it wasn't a big fight. It was such a big deal that the chapter was the 4th most read popular chapters on Manga Plus for 2025, which is pretty impressive. Also, Sakura has fought Ryu, Hidari, and Mamushi. Right now, she's a character who's fought the most Shinju after Boruto at 3 out of 5, since Kawaki's only fought Jura and Mamushi. Yes, he killed Hidari, but that was at the last minutes. Also, this is just a general question for everyone. Do we value group fights in shonen? Because to me, it feels like if a group of protagonists has to gang up on one antagonist to win, that kind of makes the antagonist look stronger since they're clearly someone that takes a lot of effort to beat, but also makes the protagonist look good since they have to struggle so much and work together to overcome an obstacle. I mean, Himawari fought Jura as best as she could after Teams 10 couldn't do much. Boruto needed Satoru and Konohamaru's help to beat Hidari. Boruto was only able to beat Matsuri because of all the damage Konohamaru did to her. And Mamushi has forced everyone to get their own moments to shine beating him up. Even Kawaki fought Jura and saved Boruto in the process via focusing all his stats all on offense. Plus, I was gonna make the argument that in the Kazekaze rescue arc, the big moments were reduced to Gar versus Deidara, Team 7 versus Fake Itachi, Guy doing most of the work against Kisame, Sakura and Chiyo versus Sasori, and Kakashi having to get Naruto to chill using his tails, but also saving everyone from Deidara's bomb. Yeah, Team Guy fought Team Guy, but the manga didn't show it, and people hated the anime showing the fights. So clearly, if we're comparing, it feels like Boruto side characters have gotten a lot more to do of actually dealing with the main threats in part 2, but the comparison was kind of sketchy anyway. But look, the moral of the story is we all have questionable takes. Wild Fang rocks with Boruto, I rock with Boruto, and you're not always going to see eye to eye with your fellow fans. Heck, that's why I don't really consider myself a part of any fandom, since I don't need other people to make my life more miserable than it already is. But I wanted to open the discussion board a little bit. Please keep the comment section of either my video or his video sane. The people who watch both of us are pretty chill and nuanced about it in his video, so I expect the same thing on this channel as well. If there's anything you think I forgot to bring up or neglect or something I should consider, please let me know, because I also suck at being a YouTuber. Okay, that's not true. I just suck at being a YouTuber. Everyone else is fine. Thanks for watching, and BIP of Bizarre Interest Productions, signing off.